The morning of my wedding, my fiancée slid a prenup across the table and smiled like she had already won. "Sign it, Caleb," Vanessa said softly. "This protects both of us." Her mother, Margaret Bell, sat beside her with a glass of champagne at 10 in the morning, looking at me like I was mud on her marble floor. "Let's be honest," Margaret said. "You're marrying up. My daughter has assets, reputation, family connections. You have what exactly?" Across the room, Vanessa's childhood friend Adrian Vale laughed under his breath. He was the man Margaret wished Vanessa had chosen. Old money, private schools, a family name people lowered their voices around. And me? I was the quiet orphan Vanessa met at university. The man who drove an old black car, wore the same watch every day, and never corrected anyone when they assumed I was broke. Vanessa tapped the prenup with one manicured nail. No claim to premarital assets. No spousal support if the marriage ends due to misconduct. No access to family trusts, inheritances, or business holdings. Then she smiled. Simple. In my last life, I signed because I loved her. I thought she was nervous. I thought Margaret had pressured her. I thought love meant proving I was not marrying her for money. 3 years later, Vanessa betrayed me with Adrian, emptied our apartment, and tried to take half of everything I had secretly built. But the real truth came out too late. I was not broke. I was the hidden heir to the Whitmore estate. $5 billion in holdings, 3 private companies, a shipping empire, a family trust my grandfather had hidden behind trustees until I turned 30. By the time Vanessa learned, she had already destroyed me in court, lied to the press, and signed away every right she might have had. But now I was reborn, back to my wedding morning, back to the prenup, back to Vanessa's confident smile. This time I picked up the pen immediately. Margaret's lips curved, Adrian smirked, Vanessa looked relieved. I signed every page. Then I slid the prenup back across the table. Done. Vanessa leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Thank you for understanding." I smiled. "Oh, I understand perfectly." Because this time when she begged to tear it up, it would be far too late. Chapter 1. When I woke up reborn, I was standing in front of a mirror wearing my wedding suit. For a few seconds, I could not breathe. The last thing I remembered was a hospital ceiling, a slow monitor, and a news broadcast playing above the bed. Vanessa Bell announces engagement to Adrian Vale after finalizing divorce from Caleb Hart. My name looked small on the screen, an old mistake she had finally erased. Then the pain in my chest sharpened, the room blurred, and I died watching my ex-wife smile beside another man. Now I was alive again, 30 years old, wedding day, white shirt, black suit, silver cufflinks, and on the dresser beside me, a sealed envelope from Whitmore Legal. The envelope that would change everything at midnight. In my last life, I opened it too late, after the wedding, after signing the prenup, after Vanessa had already made me feel small enough to apologize for existing. The letter said, "Upon your 30th birthday, you are formally recognized as the primary heir of the Whitmore Family Trust. Control of Whitmore Holdings will transfer upon verification of identity and execution of succession documents." My birthday was today, my wedding day. The trustees had planned to reveal everything after the ceremony. My grandfather arranged it that way before he died. He wanted to see whether people loved me before they knew the price of my name. Cruel old man, brilliant old man. In my first life, I thought Vanessa passed the test because she married me while thinking I had nothing. Then I learned the truth. She had married me because she thought I was useful, safe, grateful. A husband who would never challenge her family because he had no family of his own. When the Whitmore inheritance surfaced, her softness changed shape overnight. Suddenly she wanted access, wanted to help manage things, wanted to amend the prenup because marriage is about trust. The same document she forced me to sign became, in her words, a cold mistake made under family pressure. When I refused, she went to Adrian. Not immediately, not publicly, but slowly. Lunches, charity meetings, late-night strategy calls. Then one night I came home and found his cufflink under our bed. She cried first. Of course she did. Vanessa always cried before truth could organize itself. This time I looked at myself in the mirror and straightened my tie. No anger, not yet. Only memory. A knock came at the door. "Caleb?" Vanessa's voice, soft, sweet, false in ways I now by heart. I opened the door. She stood there in a white silk robe, hair pinned loosely, makeup half done. She looked beautiful. That still hurt. People like to believe betrayal makes beauty disappear. It does not. Sometimes the knife shines too. She smiled when she saw me. "Thank you." Her smile faltered slightly. In my last life, I had reached for her immediately, called her beautiful, told her I could not believe she chose me. This time I only stood there. She stepped inside and closed the door. "My mother wants to talk before the ceremony. There's a surprise." Her eyes widened. "How did you know?" I almost laughed. Because I had lived this humiliation before. Because I remembered Margaret placing the prenup on the table like a bill for breathing. Because I remembered Adrian leaning against the window, pretending he had no reason to be there. I guessed. Vanessa touched my arm. Please don't be upset. It's just paperwork. Of course. Her shoulders relaxed. Really, really. For 1 second, I saw calculation pass behind her eyes. She expected resistance. Maybe hurt. Maybe me asking if she trusted me. My calm made her uncertain. Good. Let uncertainty begin early. She leaned up and kissed my cheek. You're the best. No, I was the easiest. That was what she meant. I followed her downstairs. The Bell family estate looked exactly as I remembered. White flowers, gold chairs, champagne towers, a string quartet warming up outside. Every detail expensive enough to feel cold. Margaret waited in the private breakfast room with Adrian beside her. He wore a navy suit and the expression of a man attending another man's wedding as a temporary inconvenience. Caleb, Margaret said, smiling thinly. Sit. I sat. Vanessa sat beside her mother, not beside me. That too I remembered. Margaret placed the prenup in front of me. The lawyers prepared this. Standard protection. Adrian looked out the window, smiling. I opened the folder. In my last life, the words blurred because my hands shook. This time I read them clearly. No claim to Vanessa's premarital assets. No claim to Bell family holdings. No spousal maintenance if I committed misconduct. No access to inheritance, trust distributions, or business shares belonging to either party unless explicitly gifted. The final clause was the most beautiful. This waiver applies mutually and permanently, regardless of future change in wealth, title, inheritance, or asset discovery. Margaret had included that to protect Vanessa if she became richer. She never imagined it would protect me. I looked up. This applies to both of us? Margaret laughed. If you win the lottery, Caleb, Vanessa won't touch your millions. Adrian smirked. Fair is fair. I nodded. Good. Vanessa blinked. Good? I picked up the pen, signed the first page, then the second, then every place they had marked with yellow tabs. No hesitation, no trembling, no wounded speech about trust. Margaret looked pleased. Adrian looked amused. Vanessa looked relieved. I closed the folder and slid it back. There. Margaret lifted her glass. To mature decisions. I lifted mine too. Adrian laughed. He had no idea. Chapter 2. The wedding was beautiful. That was the problem with disasters. They do not always announce themselves with thunder. Sometimes they arrive under white roses, piano music, and relatives dabbing their eyes with silk handkerchiefs. Vanessa walked toward me through the garden in a lace gown, sunlight behind her, looking like a promise no one had broken yet. For one moment, memory softened. The first time we met, she spilled coffee on my notebook in a university library. She apologized for 5 straight minutes. I told her the notebook was ugly anyway. She laughed so hard the librarian kicked us out. That laugh was real. I still believe that. Not everything was fake. That is what makes betrayal difficult. If every smile had been a lie, I could have hated her cleanly. But some parts were real. The late-night noodles in our first apartment. The way she held my hand after I failed my first investor pitch. The way she cried at my grandfather's funeral, even though she never knew who he truly was. Maybe she loved me once. Maybe she loved the version of me who made her feel generous. It did not matter. At the altar, she looked into my eyes. Caleb, she whispered. I looked back. The priest spoke. The guests watched. Margaret cried into a handkerchief, though I suspected from pride, not sentiment. Adrian stood in the second row, too close to family, too far from shame. When it was time for vows, Vanessa's voice trembled beautifully. I choose you not for what you have, but for who you are. A few guests sighed. I almost smiled. Not for what you have. She would regret that sentence soon. When it was my turn, I said the same vows I said in my first life. Not because I meant them the same way, because the recording would matter later. I promised to honor truth between us. I promised to protect what is entrusted to me. I promised never to use love as a weapon. Vanessa's eyes softened. She thought I was being romantic. I was documenting a standard. We kissed. People cheered. The ceremony ended. The marriage began. So did the countdown. At the reception, Margaret moved through the room like a queen among creditors. She introduced me as our humble Caleb, our modest groom, a man untouched by greed. Every phrase was a velvet leash. Adrian found me near the terrace after dinner. Congratulations, he said. Thank you. He held out champagne. I did not take it. His smile tightened. You don't drink? Not what I didn't pour. His eyes sharpened. In my last life, I tried to befriend him. I thought he was important to Vanessa. He was. Just not in the way I accepted. He leaned against the railing. Vanessa is special. Yes, she's used to a certain life. I know. Some men struggle with that. I turned to him. Do you? His mouth opened slightly. Then he laughed. Good one. It was not a joke. Across the ballroom, Vanessa danced with her father. Margaret watched him proudly. The Bell family looked complete. Old money, old arrogance, old plans. And me, the poor husband, standing outside their circle, useful only because I had signed away any possible claim. At 11:58 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Whitmore Legal. Mr. Hart, formal succession verification will begin at midnight, as instructed. Trustee team is present at your hotel suite. I looked through the windows at my wife dancing beneath chandeliers, then at Adrian watching her, then at Margaret smiling like she had secured her daughter's future by tying it to a man she believed had none. At midnight, the Bell family still thought they had protected themselves from me. By morning, they would understand they had protected me from them. Chapter 3, the trustee team waited in my hotel suite like ghosts dressed in expensive wool. 3 lawyers, 2 accountants, 1 elderly man with a cane and eyes so sharp they made every lie in the room nervous. Edmund Finch, my grandfather's closest advisor. In my last life, he said, your grandfather hoped they would not make you sign anything before we arrived. Then he read the prenup and laughed for the first time in 20 years. This time, when I entered, he looked at my face and paused. You seem prepared. His brows lifted. Interesting. I handed him the prenup copy. He read the first page, then the second, then the mutual waiver clause. At that line, his mouth curved. Magnificent. One of the younger lawyers coughed to hide a laugh. Finch looked up. Did they understand what they drafted? No, did you? Yes. He studied me for a long moment. In my first life, I was overwhelmed here. I asked if Vanessa needed to be told immediately. I asked if the prenup could be amended. I asked if love required transparency before legal advantage. Finch told me, love is not harmed by boundaries. It is revealed by them. I did not understand then. Now I did. He opened the succession folder. Caleb Hart, legally born Caleb Whitmore Hart, sole surviving heir of Eleanor Whitmore and grandson of Theodore Whitmore, you are hereby recognized as primary beneficiary and controlling trustee of Whitmore Holdings. The words filled the room with the weight of history. Whitmore Holdings, $5 billion in assets, shipping, commercial real estate, medical manufacturing, private equity, land I had never seen, buildings I had walked past without knowing. They belonged to the bloodline my mother hid from me. My mother left the Whitmore family before I was born. She married my father, a schoolteacher, and raised me in a 2-bedroom apartment. She told me wealth made people forget how to knock before entering. When she died, my grandfather found me. He never forced the family name on me. He only visited twice a year, brought books, asked hard questions, and left quietly. Only after his death did I learn he had made me heir, the hidden heir, a phrase tabloids would later devour. I signed the succession documents. This time, my hand did not shake. At 1:15 mem, Whitmore Holdings belonged to me. At 1:40, Finch handed me a second folder. Your wife should be informed soon, not tonight. He smiled faintly. No? Tonight she is enjoying being protected from my poverty. Finch did not hide his amusement. Your grandfather would have liked this version of you. He made the old version necessary. That is true. Then he slid one final paper toward me. Prenup acknowledgement. We'll file it with your succession documents to establish prior execution and mutual waiver before asset disclosure. I signed. The prenup Vanessa forced on me was now part of the Whitmore record. Permanent. Mutual. Irrevocable. When I returned to the reception suite, Vanessa was asleep in her wedding dress on the sofa, shoes kicked off, hairpins scattered. For a moment she looked young, almost innocent. I covered her with a blanket, not because she deserved tenderness, because I still remembered the man who loved her. Then I sat in the chair across from her and watched dawn lighten the windows. My wife had married a broke man. She would wake beside an heir. The contract between those two facts was already signed. Chapter 4, Vanessa found out at breakfast. Not because I told her, because Margaret did. Her mother always did enjoy being first with a blade. We were seated in the hotel's private dining room, still half dazed from the wedding, when Margaret's phone rang. She answered with irritation. Then silence. Her eyes moved to me, slowly. The color drained from her face. That was the first time I had ever seen Margaret Bell truly speechless. Vanessa noticed. Mother? Margaret ended the call. Her hand trembled slightly around the phone. Caleb, she said. I buttered a piece of toast. Yes? What is Whitmore Holdings? The room went still. Vanessa frowned. Adrian, who had somehow joined breakfast despite not being family, looked up sharply. I placed the knife down. My family company, Vanessa laughed softly. What? I looked at her. My grandfather's company, Margaret whispered. Theodore Whitmore was your grandfather? Yes, Adrian sat back. For once his charm failed to load. Vanessa stared at me. Caleb, what is she talking about? Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. Then Adrian's. Then everyone's. The financial news alert had gone public. Hidden Whitmore Heir assumes control of 5B Holdings Empire. After private succession filing, my name appeared below it. Caleb Whitmore Hart. Vanessa read the headline 3 times. Her mouth opened. Closed. Open again. You're Whitmore? Apparently. Margaret stood so quickly, her chair scraped. You knew yesterday. I knew enough. Her eyes flashed. And you let my daughter sign that prenup? I leaned back. Your daughter made me sign it. Vanessa flinched. Caleb, I turned to her. Yes? Her face had gone pale. Not wedding day pale. Fear pale. You should have told me. When, before or after your mother said I was marrying up? Margaret snapped. This is deception. No. Margaret. Deception would be hiding assets during marriage negotiations. I had not yet legally received them. The succession was finalized after the prenup. Finch filed the timeline. Adrian's jaw tightened. You planned this. I smiled at him. No. You all planned for me to be poor. I simply failed to cooperate with the assumption. Vanessa's eyes filled. The old reflex. The room softened instinctively. Even after all this, tears still worked on people, but not on me. Not anymore. I married you because I loved you, she whispered. I looked at her. Then the prenup shouldn't bother you. She recoiled like I had slapped her. Beautiful. Simple. Unanswerable. Margaret pointed at me. That agreement was drafted under incomplete disclosure. I looked at her calmly. It was drafted by your lawyers, presented by you, signed before witnesses, applied mutually, permanently, regardless of future change in wealth, title, inheritance, or asset discovery. I quoted the clause from memory. Margaret's face tightened with every word. Adrian looked like he might be sick. Vanessa whispered, Can we talk privately? In my last life, I said yes. That was always the first mistake. Privacy is where people rewrite what they fear saying in public. This time I stood. No, her tears spilled. Caleb, please. There it was. The first beg. Less than 10 hours after the wedding, I picked up my coffee. You wanted contracts, Vanessa. We have one. Then I left the dining room. Behind me, Margaret started shouting at someone on the phone. Adrian said nothing, and Vanessa cried harder, not because I was cruel, because she finally understood the size of what she had signed away. Chapter 5. The first week of marriage was a war disguised as a honeymoon. Vanessa wanted to cancel the trip to Santorini. Then she wanted to go. Then she wanted to bring lawyers. Then she cried and said lawyers would ruin the romance. I went alone to the Whitmore estate instead, not to punish her, to learn what I owned before everyone else tried to teach me. Whitmore House sat on a cliff above the sea, all stone walls, dark wood and windows facing storms. It did not feel like a home. Not yet. It felt like a responsibility with bedrooms. Finch met me in the library. Mrs. Hart called 14 times. I assumed. She wants to amend the prenup. She can want. She says she signed under emotional pressure. I looked at him. From whom? Her mother, presumably. And I signed under what? Champagne? Finch smiled. I'll quote that never. Over the next few days, I reviewed the estate, board structures, trusts, companies, staff, obligations. The money was enormous. But what shocked me was not the wealth. It was how quiet it was. No chandeliers screaming importance. No Margaret announcing bloodline at breakfast. Just files, land, payroll, ships, factories, people whose lives depended on decisions being made by someone who did not confuse ego with management. On the fourth day, Vanessa arrived, without warning. She stepped out of a black car wearing white linen, sunglasses, and the expression of a woman prepared to forgive me for her own mistake. I watched from the front steps. She removed her glasses. Caleb, Vanessa. She looked past me at the house. Her eyes widened despite herself. For once, she could not hide hunger. This is yours? Yes. Ours? I smiled faintly. No. The word struck her hard. She recovered quickly. We're married. We signed a prenup. That was before. Before what? Her lips trembled. Before I knew. Exactly. There it was. The whole marriage reduced to one sentence. Before I knew you were worth more. I stepped aside. You may come in. She entered the hall slowly, taking in the portraits, the staircase, the old carpets, the staff moving quietly in the background. This is why you were always so calm, she whispered. No, I was calm because I grew up poor and learned panic doesn't pay rent. She looked back at me. Pain crossed her face. I didn't mean it like that. You never mean it like that. You only say it like that. We sat in the library. She looked small in the room. That surprised me. At Bell House, Vanessa had always seemed perfectly placed. Here, surrounded by older power, she looked uncertain. Maybe that was why she started crying. I was scared, she said. Of what? Of marrying someone who might resent my family's money. So you made sure I could never touch it. Yes. At breakfast, you wanted to touch mine. She covered her face. That's not fair. No, I said. That word has been overworked lately. She looked up. I love you. I believed her less than I wanted to. Maybe she loved me. Maybe she loved being my wife more now that the word meant access to rooms her mother had only read about. Then stay married under the agreement you demanded, I said. Her eyes widened. Without sharing anything? You demanded separation of assets. I didn't understand. You understood perfectly when you thought the assets were yours. She went pale. Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, Mother said you'd leave me if you ever became successful. I laughed softly. Your mother did not imagine this level of failure. Her face crumpled. Don't make fun of me. I'm not. I'm explaining Margaret's risk model. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Almost. Then the moment passed. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. Her fingers were cold. Can we start over? She asked. In my last life, this question came after the affair, after the headlines, after she realized Adrian wanted her only when she could deliver access. This time, it came earlier. Still late. I don't know, I said honestly. Hope flickered. I hated myself for giving it. But I was not here to be cruel for sport. I was here to survive. We stay merry, I said. The prenup remains, no amendment. No access to Whitmore accounts. No advisory role. No family interference, she swallowed. And mother? Your mother speaks to my lawyers, staff, trustees, or board. Her mouth tightened. She'll be offended. She'll survive. And Adrian? I watched her closely. Her eyes flickered. There, small. Not guilt yet. Possibility. Adrian has no place in my marriage, I said. She looked down. I know. But she had been warned. Chapter 6 for 6 months. Vanessa tried to become the wife she should have been before the headline. She visited Whitmore House, learned staff names, asked about board meetings. Not too much. She stopped letting Margaret speak to me like a hired driver. That was new. At one dinner, Margaret said, Caleb is fortunate the Whitmore trustees kept things warm for him. Vanessa set down her fork. Mother, don't. Margaret blinked. Everyone did. I looked at my wife. For a moment, I saw the woman I had wanted her to be. Then Adrian texted her. I saw his name light her screen. She turned it face down too quickly. The old life had not fully arrived yet, but it was knocking. Adrian changed strategy after the inheritance reveal. He no longer mocked me directly. He became sympathetic. To Vanessa, not me. He told her people would say she married for money. He told her the prenup made her look foolish. He told her I was punishing her. He told her a real husband would want to share everything. Adrian was very talented at finding doors people were ashamed to admit existed. Vanessa began asking questions again. Small at first. What happens if we have children? They'll be provided for. Through you? Through trusts. Controlled by you? Controlled by trustees. What if something happens to you? My will is clear. Do I have a role? No, that hurt her. I saw it. But I remembered the first life. In that life, after discovering my inheritance, Vanessa convinced me to amend small things. A joint investment account, a shared property vehicle, a family office seat. Then when the marriage collapsed, she used every amendment as proof that my assets had become marital. This time, every door stayed locked. Love could sit in the room. It did not get the keys to the vault. The affair began in the 7th month, or rather, resumed. I do not know if it had started before the wedding in this life. I suspect emotional betrayal had. Physical betrayal came later. A hotel lunch. A charity meeting. A weekend retreat Margaret insisted was family business. This time I did not confront. I documented. Finch arranged investigators. Rebecca prepared filings. Vanessa lied beautifully. I'm meeting mother. I'm at the gallery board. Adrian is helping with a foundation issue. Every lie entered a folder. Every folder became peace. Because evidence is what you build when your heart wants to scream. The final proof came on our first anniversary. I had planned nothing. In another life, I planned roses and a private dinner. This time, I planned an exit. Vanessa came home at midnight, wearing the earrings I bought her after our wedding. One was missing. I noticed because I had found the matching earring in Adrian's hotel suite earlier that afternoon, through a photograph in the investigator's report. She kissed my cheek. I'm sorry. Mother kept me late. Did she? Her smile froze. For 1 second, she knew. Not everything. Enough. I placed the prenup on the coffee table. Beside it, the adultery clause. Beside that, the hotel photos. Beside that, the divorce petition. Vanessa went white. Caleb? No, she had not said anything yet, but I already knew the shape of her first lie. She sat slowly. Her hands trembled. Please let me explain. I looked at the woman I had married twice in 2 lives, once in ignorance and once with conditions. Explain why the man your mother wanted for you keeps ending up in hotel rooms you lie about. She covered her mouth. Tears. Always tears. I was lonely. There it was, the most expensive word in marriage. Lonely. As if loneliness were a weather system that pushed people into betrayal. You were rich, I said. Protected, warned. Given a second chance you don't even know you received. She looked confused through tears. What? Nothing. I stood. The prenup stands. The misconduct clause applies. You receive nothing beyond what the law requires. You waive claims to Whitmore assets permanently. You already did. She began sobbing. Not the pretty kind. The terrified kind. You can't leave me with nothing. I looked at her. That's exactly what your mother wanted for me. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. No. Her face collapsed. Caleb, I love you, maybe. She looked up, desperate. Then why? Because you love Axis more. She crawled toward the coffee table, grabbed the prenup and shook her head like paper could change under tears. I was stupid. I was scared. Tear it up. Please. We can fix it. The begging. The moment delayed from my first life. I watched her clutch the document she had once used as a shield against me. No, I said. One word. Enough. Chapter 7. Margaret arrived 20 minutes later. Of course, Vanessa called her. Margaret entered my living room without knocking, wearing a fur coat and fury. You vindictive little bastard. I almost smiled. Good evening, Margaret. Vanessa sat on the sofa crying. The divorce papers were still on the table. Margaret snatched them up, read quickly, and went pale. You cannot enforce this. I can. She signed under pressure. From you, Margaret's mouth tightened. She was protecting herself. So was I. You tricked us. I stood. No. You underestimated me. There's a difference. Her eyes flashed. You think money makes you superior now? No. I think contracts make things clear. Vanessa cried harder. Mother, stop. Margaret turned on her. No. You stop. You stupid girl. The room went silent. Vanessa looked up like she had been slapped. Margaret's mask cracked fully. You had him. You had Whitmore. You had access to everything if you had just behaved for a few years. There it was, the truth. Not my daughter is heartbroken. Not how could you hurt her. Just you failed the strategy. Vanessa stared at her mother. A new kind of pain moved across her face. She finally saw that Margaret had never wanted me as a son-in-law. She wanted my eventual value captured. In my first life, Vanessa learned this too late. This time she learned it sitting beside the prenup. Margaret looked back at me. You will settle quietly. No, you will not embarrass my daughter. She embarrassed herself privately. The filing can stay private if she cooperates. Vanessa whispered. Private? I looked at her. I'm not interested in headlines. Margaret scoffed. How noble. No, practical. Public scandal lowers everyone's value, including mine. Margaret stared. Then, despite herself, she understood. I was not acting from rage. That frightened her more. Rage could be manipulated. Practicality had lawyers. She lowered her voice. What do you want? Nothing from you. That's impossible. No, Margaret. It's called independence. Her lips thinned. Rebecca arrived then, perfectly timed, carrying a black folder. Mrs. Bell, she said, if you interfere further, we'll add witness intimidation and malicious inducement to the record. Margaret looked her up and down. Who are you? The person who read your prenup better than you did. I nearly laughed. Margaret did not. Vanessa looked at me, tears still falling. Caleb, please, don't do this. I crouched in front of her. Not close enough to touch. Close enough that she had to hear me clearly. You made me sign that prenup because you thought I was beneath you. She shook her head violently. No, you let your mother humiliate me because you thought I had no power. Caleb, you went to Adrian because he made you feel like you hadn't miscalculated. She covered her face. And now you want mercy because the mistake became expensive, she sobbed. Is that all I am to you now, a mistake? I looked at her for a long moment. In another life, I loved her until it killed me. In this one, I gave her a chance to choose differently. She chose the same road. No, I said. You were a lesson. That hurt her. It hurt me, too. But truth often cuts both ways. Chapter 8. The divorce took 5 months. The prenup held. Of course it did. Margaret's own lawyers had drafted it too well. The mutual waiver clause became the steel wall Vanessa kept throwing herself against. No claim to Whitmore assets. No spousal support after misconduct. No access to trusts, inheritances, or business holdings. Permanent. Regardless of future change in wealth. Every word returned like a trained dog. Adrian vanished during the 2nd month. Not romantically. Strategically. He issued a statement through counsel saying his relationship with Vanessa began only after marital separation. The hotel timestamps disagreed. So did the photos. So did Vanessa's messages. When she realized he was protecting himself first, she stopped defending him. That was the beginning of her honesty. Not goodness, just exhaustion. Margaret tried one final tactic. She offered to repair relations between the Bell and Whitmore families through a business partnership. Finch laughed for nearly 7 seconds. A personal record. Vanessa signed the settlement in a quiet conference room. No makeup, no mother beside her, no Adrian. Just her, me, Rebecca, and a lawyer who looked like he wished he had chosen maritime law. When it was done, Vanessa held the pen for a long time. Then she looked at me. I really did love you. I know, her eyes filled. You believe that? Yes. Then why does that make it worse? I leaned back. Because love should have made you kinder. She looked down. A tear fell onto the signature page. No one moved to wipe it. After the lawyers left, she handed me an envelope. I wrote this. You don't have to read it. Everyone wrote letters when consequences became too quiet. Still, I took it. She stood. I'm moving out of Mother's house. That surprised me. Where? A small flat near the gallery. Yours? She smiled faintly. Rented. It sounded like a foreign word in her mouth. Good, I said. She nodded, crying softly. I think I need to know what things cost. That was the first sentence from her that felt like growth. Too late for us. Not too late for her. At the door, she stopped. If I had known before the wedding, if I had known who you were, I looked at her. Exactly. She closed her eyes. That was the answer. She left. I read the letter weeks later. Caleb, I told myself the prenup was about safety. It was really about superiority. I wanted to believe I was choosing love while protecting myself from a man with nothing. I never asked what it felt like to be loved by someone I treated as a risk. When I found out who you were, I wanted to undo the contract because it revealed me too clearly. I said the problem was fairness, the problem was shame. Adrian did not make me betray you. He made me feel less foolish for already having done it. Mother taught me to value men by what they could provide, then mocked you because we thought you could provide nothing. You gave me a chance after knowing that. I wasted it. I am sorry, not because I lost Whitmore, because I lost you while trying to measure you. Vanessa, I folded the letter. Not forgiven, not forgotten, stored. Years passed. Whitmore Holdings grew. I learned the business slowly, seriously, without letting the name consume the man my parents had raised. Finch died 2 years later after insulting 3 doctors and 1 priest. He left me a note. You finally learned to sign only after reading. Good. I framed it in my office. Margaret faded from society after the divorce. Not completely. Women like Margaret do not vanish. They become selective. Adrian married someone else with money, then divorced badly. Vanessa opened a small gallery, a real one, not a Bell family vanity project. I saw it once from across the street. She was inside, helping a young painter hang a crooked canvas. No diamonds, no mother, no Adrian. She looked tired, human. She saw me through the window. For a moment, neither of us moved, then she smiled. Small, sad, no request attached. I nodded once. She nodded back, and that was all. No reunion, no second chance. Some lessons are paid for too dearly to repeat. That night, I returned to Whitmore House. The sea was dark beyond the cliffs. The old halls were quiet. I walked into the library where I had first signed the succession papers and poured 1 glass of water. Not champagne. I thought of the wedding morning. Margaret's smile. Adrian's smirk. Vanessa's relief when I signed away rights to a fortune she did not know existed. In my last life, that prenup felt like humiliation. In this life, it became freedom. Not because it punished her. Because it told the truth before money could confuse it. She had asked me to prove I loved her by signing, so I signed. And when she later begged me to tear it up, I finally understood what my grandfather had tried to teach me. A contract does not destroy love. It reveals who expected love to mean surrender. I placed my glass on the desk. Outside, the wind moved over the dark sea. No wife asking for access. No mother-in-law measuring my worth. No rival standing close enough to laugh. Only my name, my house, my peace. And the prenup she wrote, to protect herself from a broke man, locked forever in my vault, protecting me from her.